Welcome to Evolving Humans. I'm your host, Julia Marie, and this podcast is for visionary people like you who are exploring the true nature of reality and want to contribute to the global awakening. You seek to deepen the connection to your multidimensional self so that you can live a more conscious life. Dr. Susan Fay is back with us today to talk about how you can learn to become good at energetic communication. Dr. Fay is an internationally known speaker, clinician, consultant, and author of Sacred Spaces, Communion with the Horse Through Science and Spirit. Her passion is to help people discover more about their own innate human capabilities so that they can unlock the keys to energetic communication. Welcome back, Susan. I can't wait to continue our discussion.
Oh, this is so much fun. And, you know, when you get me talking about this topic, we can always tell what our passion is because we just love to talk about it. And
I get it. So, you told the story about you and Tank, and I got so involved in the story, I forgot to clarify. Would you please tell us what a Morgan horse is, number one, and number two, your actual height? Because I feel like it's important for people to understand actually how strong an animal Tank is.
Yes. Morgan horses are the very first breed of horse developed in this country. It was back in the 1700s. And they don't know the actual origins or what types of horses went into the Morgan horse. But this one guy named Justin Morgan horse that was just incredible because it could do all of these things. It could pull the cart and be fancy, when we went to church on Sunday. And it could go to the fields and plow and pull just as strongly as other horses, even though it was small in size. And it was just, it could race, it could beat all the other horses at the races. And there was this one stallion, and he had all these qualities. And then when they bred him to other horses, no matter what the horse that was, he imprinted those same qualities on those other horses. So that's when the breed started to develop, and it was all from this one little horse up in Vermont that was owned by a school teacher. And it's such a neat story. Disney made a little story about it. I'm sure they exaggerated a lot of it, but from our folklore and everything that came down the line, it was this horse that was super versatile and could do a lot of things, but had that kind of personality that it wanted to connect with people and please people. So when I went to Vermont, it felt like I was at home. So perhaps I had other lifetimes there where that horse made a big impact. And then you asked me to say how tall I am. I'm 5'1". And at the time I had Tank, I probably weighed maybe 100 pounds, not very big. And Tank is what they call 16 hands tall at where his wither is, right before his neck. So not when he puts his head all the way up, but just right there at the withers. And a hand is 4 inches. So you can imagine he's in the horse training world. At the time that I was doing it, it was all about how strong are you? How bold are you? How aggressive are you? All these things like that. And I'm none of those things. And so they would tell me, oh, you can't be a good horse trainer. What I've realized is horses, I don't think they see your size. They see your energy, your energetic signature. How clear are you inside energetically? How stable are you inside energetically? And so that was, I think, the thing that I relied on was that with this big, gigantic horse, that he would see me as bigger than I am. And not in an aggressive way, just as he doesn't see me as a little peanut. He sees me as, the same size as him, maybe. So
I think the important point is he could feel you.
Right.
And he could feel your stability and your safety.
Mm-hmm.
And your desire to allow him to be who he was as a horse, too.
Absolutely.
I want to start with the obvious. So this energetic communication thing that we're talking about, is this something that everyone can do?
Absolutely. And when I teach people, whether it's in an in-person clinic or I do Zoom times, that I can walk them through ways to start to get clarity in their energy field. And they will see the reaction from their horse immediately. And they go, oh my gosh, it's that easy? Like, yeah. And it's not necessarily, sometimes I'll get words or I'll think something, in human words, but when you speak to an animal in that energetic place where I know what you're going to do and I know what my emotions are, my thoughts and intentions, and then the animal kind of gives you back the same responses to that thing that you were thinking, talking about. It's pretty amazing when people watch. And it's not to say we don't talk. Like a lot of times I'll be in a clinic and I'm speaking something. I'm going to say, I'm going to about do this with the horse. And then what the horse does is before the words come out of my mouth, they're already doing that thing. It's because our thoughts and emotions align with the word we're going to say. And the horse picks that up before it comes out of our mouth. A lot of times I'll have people talk to their horse, and that's fine, if that's how you want to do the communication. But just know that they're also behind the scenes before your words come out, that they've already known what you've said energetically.
And they're getting ready to respond.
Yeah.
You intimated a little bit that it's not only for horses, but so I just want to be clear. The book is about humans and horses, but all of the techniques can also be used with my pets if I have them, or I can also practice them with other humans, correct?
Absolutely. And if you'd like, I'll just tell a little story about one of my clients who was a horse client. She came to my clinics, but then she says, well, could you maybe help me out with this meeting? She worked for this organization, and whenever they had a group meeting, it just ended up being very contentious, and people started screaming at each other and not listening to each other. And it was just a big mess. And she goes, oh, I've got this meeting coming up and it's going to be like that again. Do you have any suggestions? And so what we did was I go, okay, well, what would you want to set as an energy for that meeting? I usually go back to something like safety and comfort or something similar, okay, where when you have safety and comfort, it feels like everybody can speak what they need to speak and they feel safe in that space. So it's a really go-to one that I use a lot of times as an energy. And I said, okay, let's practice your energy of safety and comfort. She practiced it so that she could imagine before she went in the meeting, I can hold that in my breath and I can just breathe safety and comfort through my body. So she doesn't have to worry about anybody else in the meeting at all. She's going to be the one to set the stage for how everybody's going to interact in that space. Okay, so she's like, okay, now's my test. And she said she went in there and immediately, like, people sat down, they were quiet, they were respectful to each other, they let each other talk, they were more vulnerable than they'd been. There was no arguing, and everybody got along. And she goes, it couldn't have been that easy, right? Yeah, it can be that easy. What essentially she was doing is that she set this energy and she became the strongest wave in the energetic field, which caused all the other people in their body
train themselves.
Right. They didn't even know they were in training at a conscious level, but she was saying, this is where the space is. Okay. Isn't that beautiful to know that we have that ability? And so many times I plug it into my human world and use it in the human world. And I think that the beauty of having an animal, a horse or something, is they're so attuned to the energy field that they will show you right away where you're at. You got to work on that a little more, or yeah, you got it. And you'll see these signs from the animal that says, yeah, they received that and they're responding in a way that is congruent with what energy I was thinking I'm doing.
I've always said validation's a valuable tool. So what a better way to get validation than work with your animals.
Yeah. And when I was first thinking about doing this with the energy and, the brain waves and the heart waves, and I went to these two neuroscientists that actually live not that far from me. And I made an appointment with them because my intention was to go to them and find out what technology they were using to monitor people's energy fields and their brain waves and all this stuff. And I went and did my best, that I thought my best presentation in front of them. And their office was full of computer screens up on the wall with all the brain stuff. And I'm like, oh, this is so cool. That was feeding my science part of my mind, like, oh my God, this is great. They're going to tell me the best thing to do. And after my presentation, they go, we don't think you should use any technology at all. And I drove home and I go, why didn't they get what I was saying? And then I got home and I realized they were saying, use the horse, do it in a natural way. Don't let people rely on this machine to tell them where they're at. Let them find that in themselves. Okay, because we've become so dependent on this technology. Oh, my heart rate is this, or my respiration is this. And when I teach people to breathe, I'm like, how do you feel when you breathe at 5 breaths a minute? That's more important than looking at your watch and trying to figure out, can I get there? I'm all about the natural way to do things. And when we talked in that first one, or you were saying, it's like resurrect our natural abilities to notice, to feel.
I personally believe that's going to be the key to us being able to change the trajectory of where we find ourselves headed right now. You've mentioned the breath. Would you mind describing a little bit? Because I feel like that's an important piece of this whole puzzle too.
There's 2 aspects to the breath. I try not to get, like, everything that I do comes from science, and then I go, how could I make that as easy as possible to get the result that we want? The same thing with breath. There's all sorts of different types of breathing and all this stuff, and people go and study all the different types of breathing. And I've narrowed it down over the years to, you just have to do this. 2 aspects of your breath are important with an animal, and I think with people just as strongly, even though they don't react quite as strongly as an animal will, is that we have to have this breath that comes into our whole body, and it moves through our body in a very regular way. So I create this kind of, in my imagination, a circle of breath, and I bring it in from the ground. Instead of thinking, I'm going to breathe up here in my chest, which most people in our modern society are breathing up here, and it's like you're just expanding your chest, and that's stress breathing. I want whole body breathing. You're imagining that those air molecules get to every space in your body. And so you're oxygenating your entire body as you think about that breath coming in. It's kind of pushing up as it comes in from the bottom. It pushes up stress, and then it just comes out your nose and back down into the ground. So the very first thing with any animal that I do is I have the person create this very smooth breath circle, oval, whatever you want to think of it as. So your chi energy follows that breath, right? A lot of times when people are doing this breathing exercise, they get stuck somewhere. The breath they can say, I can follow my breath, and then it sticks up here. Well, that means your energy is not moving through your body. I mean, a very easy thing. And then other people say, oh, it gets to my stomach, and then it disappears, and then I find it again somewhere up here. And so those are things that really immediately tell somebody your energy is not moving through your body. And so there's some different techniques we can do to help you get that smoothness of the breath moving through your body. I want this breath to work so that we can hold an energy in that space. So you can imagine, if you're thinking of an energy and you've got that breath circle, it's just cycling through, right? As you breathe in and you breathe out, that energy is just staying right there in your body. And then the second part that's really important, especially when you've got stress or a prey animal that's very attuned to their environment, they're going to be monitoring the breath of every animal in that space to say, is that animal anxious? Is that animal stressed? Is that animal have an intention to eat me? So the horse is monitoring all that. If we merely slow our breath down, we go from sympathetic, stress, flight, fright. You slow that breath down, you're going to immediately signal safety and comfort around you. Okay, so you can use your breath, and you can control your breath and learn to slow it down when you want. That is a huge tool that I use. And the way I do it is I don't think about make your breath go slower. We just watch your breath go slower. So we get our conscious thinking mind that has to analyze everything and have a job. Well, you're not breathing fast enough. You need to do that. We get that one off, give it a job, go watch your breath. And then it's out of the way. And guess what? When your conscious mind's out of the way, your intuition comes to the surface. Okay, right? So it's one of the fastest ways to get into that intuitive place. and start to be able to feel things from the field, information from other places. So this breath it's a simple technique. People still struggle with it. A lot of them work on it and, they're like, I'm still having trouble breathing slower or breathing in a smooth way. And it's like, you just keep working on it because your body keeps saying, that's not how we breathe, because I've been breathing this other way in my chest for 40 some years. When you change your breathing, your body goes, that doesn't feel right. You should go back to that other way. So I just have people pick out several times a day and just notice your breath or notice what your horse is doing. The breath is one of my foundational pieces. You get that first.
I can say a few words, but why would communicating energetically be faster than me saying sit?
Because before the word comes out of our mouth, we've already made a picture of it and a feeling associated with it. And those happen so fast and unconsciously. We don't even know we did that. Every word that I say, a split second before, I've thought about it. And I've aligned my emotion and my thoughts with what my word is going to be when it comes out. That's why it's really important, is like not just to know what are you saying, but to have that connection to your body going, okay, I feel this way. And that's what my body feels like. And that's when people talk about congruency. Oh, that person speaks in a certain way. Congruency, you can say a word and not have it align with
the feeling,
your internal physiology, right? So everything I teach when I teach with animals and communication is, I want you to align your body with what you're going to say or do. And that's what builds trust with an animal, is that when we feel it and we do it just as we felt it, they go, oh, yeah, she's congruent.
No threat here.
Yeah. And you find like just those putting attention on your thoughts and emotions before you do something, that the animal starts to read it because you're consistent. And he goes, oh, he starts doing things before you ask. And I think this gets to, why do some animals not listen and all that? It's like, because can you imagine if you've ever looked at a printout of brain waves and all that? I mean, there's a lot of electrical activity going on. And especially if you think a thought and you're right there and you're creating a particular brain wave that's coming out, and then you immediately switch to something else, and it's there, and then it's back to this other one. And so every time you get distracted, you create a different wave coming off of your brain. And can you imagine like an animal going, she was thinking that 1 second ago, and then she was over here thinking that, and then she was back here. That would be like watching static or hearing static and just going, okay, I just got to shut that off because it's meaningless information.
I don't know what you want. Yeah. What are you trying to say?
Exactly. Yeah. And so that's why it's like, when you become aware, here's the thought, and here's the thought and emotion I'm going to hold.
The skill that I would need to learn to master would be, number one, being able to observe my breath, that circular breath, being able to be aligned or allow that to circulate. And two, I need to be aware of what I'm thinking and feeling, and are those two things congruent? Those would be the things that I would need to work on.
Yeah. And it's interesting because when I do an energy, I almost get people completely out of their thinking mind. We'll use the thinking mind to get to that and learn how to create, I just say a frequency word in our body. But really the important part of the communication is, how does it feel in my body? So we're really going, okay, we had a thought. Now, what are you experiencing in your body as you have that, or as you replay an experience that you had? And what does my body feel like? And so you become very fluent in speaking through your body.
Body language.
Yeah. So it's internal body language rather than external, right?
Yes.
This is kind of the overview of what I do. And when I teach it, I'll go through the exact steps of here's what we do, and then make sure people have each one of those steps down, and then they'll start going, oh, okay.
That's one of the things I tell the students that I teach. The most reliable measure of any input are the sensations and feelings and what's going on internally in your physical instrument. That's your reliable sensing device.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And as you start to become more aware of your body and you slow in that space of the breathing, you start to feel the energies of others. So it can be a double-edged sword a little bit, because you'll walk up to someone and they're speaking to you and you just go, things aren't. And then you don't want to go, well, that person's not in alignment. And people are like, oh, don't you love what they said? I'm like, I didn't listen to what they said. I felt what they said. And those
Thank you.
Those are two different things altogether. And that's the part of, like, animals don't do it. They don't have that ability to deceive through words.
If you're enjoying this episode, please take a moment to rate it and leave an honest review so we can reach more people. And now back to the conversation. Have you ever had the experience of responding to what the person is feeling rather than what they're saying accidentally?
I think so. I think, it's interesting because the work I do with horses is about listening. And so it's almost like an unconscious conversation, or that I'm really never actually, even though I'm listening to our voices talking, my body's always going, is that in alignment? Is that in alignment? And then if it's not, I think it puts me a little bit off. I don't know. That was a good question. I don't know what I do. I must do something, because a lot of times people will change, but I'm like, okay,
yes.
What did my body just go, hey, let me align this? I don't know. That's a wonderful question.
Well, just observe it, because that has been something that over the years I've become aware of, that exact thing that you were talking about, the incongruence, but I never understood what it was I was reacting to. I just knew that what that person's saying and what they actually feel behind that are not matching.
And it kind of gets to that place where, in a lot of the New Age teachings is like, oh, don't say that word because that word has a particular energy. And for me, it's like, until I put the intention behind the word, it is meaningless what comes out here.
Yep.
And I always think of, I had a friend from the South, and she'd always say, oh, bless your heart. And I go, and she would say, oh, bless their heart. And I'm thinking, oh, that felt kind of good. but then she could also do that, bless your heart one that, whoa, that didn't feel so good. So it's the same words, completely different feeling.
Because of the intention. Yep. The energy behind them. Right. Yeah, that's an excellent point, and that's an excellent teaching point for anybody who's listening. If you want to just work on your intuition, just start paying attention to how your body feels when someone's talking to you, and see if what they're saying matches what your body's registering. It'd be a really good exercise in awareness.
Oh, absolutely. And the same thing when you say something, and this is an example. There's one thing that I do where we practice gratitude with the horse. And when you know that person has genuine gratitude, the horse responds in a particular way. And I always say, well, gratitude's not one energy I keep. It's more like a praise, a cookie. And so we learn how to say thank you and feel it, genuinely feel it. And then I was at a clinic, and this woman didn't get the gist of this exercise, was that you have to feel it. Don't just say the words, you have to feel it. So she would go around and her horse would do something and she goes, thank you. And I'm like, oh, that feels awful. I mean, I've got my back to her, and I could just feel the spike in that energy when she said that. And it was like, that does not feel good. If I were a horse,
that's not a cookie.
No, I would not be doing a behavior based on, I'm going to get that as a reward. I would avoid whatever she wanted me to do. It's really us, just like, we talked about in the first segment about aligning our right and left brain, and our intuition and our science part is to align our feelings with what we're saying and do that whole body alignment. Everything is in alignment.
One of the other things then, when we're talking about aligning and having things working in order, what if I'm someone who's, let's just say I had trauma in my life? How is that going to affect my ability to communicate in this way? Is there anything I could do about it?
I always have people when they come to me, most everybody has some kind of traumas in their life. What the trauma does is an energetic thing. It kind of puts a little bit of a blanket or a block or something in between the ability to communicate to something, because a lot of that trauma has to do with, am I safe? Am I not safe? And people that have a lot of trauma, or animals, will put up the big block, like, you stay this far away from me, or I don't hear these words you say. For me, if people have a lot of trauma, sometimes we can get through a little bit of it in the session, or I have people go to someone that's an expert that just does trauma type therapy for them to kind of work through some of that, because what it does is actually pollute the energy that you're doing. You may be doing your best to go, I'm doing this energy and it's safe and comfortable. And then there's that block from the trauma going, nope, it's not. No, it's not. They don't get the signal going to their animal. Okay, so they need to, again, it's about awareness. And yes, I do have trauma. And what am I going to do with that? Then on the converse side, horses, dogs, cats, they can have their own bit of trauma where they can't hear the person through their trauma. What's beautiful about when I do trauma releasing with animals is they don't hold it the same way people do. They don't go, oh, I can't let go of that trauma. It's almost like if the owner and the horse are there, let's say, for example, and I'm working with it and we're at a distance and I just look at a place on the horse, and, trauma can be held in different locations in the body, right? So if I am standing away and I'm thinking I would like to look at this horse's spots where it might have trauma, and I just look over there and that horse has a reaction, I go, oh, triggered that horse's trauma. Didn't have to touch it, didn't have to do anything, just put my intention on looking at that spot. And when we see that spot, it's a very simple process that I have them take a breath. We go to that breath circle and we're holding a space for that healing. But I don't do anything physical to say, hey, I'm going to go over and do my thing to you and make you let it go. I just tell the horse, if you're ready, you could let that go. You don't have to hold that for me or anybody. Animals will hold our trauma for us a lot of times. So I like to have, it's almost like between the owner and the animal, they make a pact. You don't have to hold my stuff. The horse will start to release it. You can see the very specific types of releases that the horse will have that say, yeah, he's letting go of some of that. So it's really fascinating to do that work with a horse on the horse end. And then as the person works on their trauma, then the energetic communication becomes stronger and clearer because you don't have those barriers there anymore.
That was beautiful what you said about the owner being able to say to the animal, you don't have to hold my trauma anymore, because they do, so many of them. And they know that's why they're in our lives, is to do that, but they don't have to.
Yeah. And, it really came to light. I was working with a golden retriever one time and I'm like, wow, this dog has so many physical problems. I mean, just its body is full of cancer. It has just a myriad of different physical things going on. And this was when I didn't look at the dog world before about this. And I just said, it's like, isn't that interesting? It's a golden retriever and it's taking on all this woman's stress and anxiety and trauma and all that stuff. And it held it in the body until his body started to degrade. I told her, it's like, isn't it interesting that golden retrievers are kind of the dog that's always like, I'll take that from you. And the terrier is like, oh, hell, that's yours. I'm not. And I thought, I wonder if golden retrievers have one of the highest cancer rates of all the breeds of dogs. And I went and looked it up, and sure enough.
Bet you they do.
Yeah. Put that pact in place. You don't have to hold my stuff for me. That's not your job. Mine is mine and yours is one of the things I say to the horses when I'm out there. And also good if you're doing this kind of work. It's just that it just boils down again to that awareness. Is this something I need to work on in myself?
And bless the animal for showing it to you. Thank them for that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I have one last question for you. If I want to apply these principles to better communication, human to human, is there anything I could do to incorporate this way of being?
when I teach people the breathing, it's like somebody said, "Oh, do you just do it when you go in with the horse?" No, it's running. Once you get it, it's all like it runs continuously. And along with that runs a scan in my body. Like I do a body scan, and it's like, oh, I got some tension here. Let me just breathe that out. So it's really just helping you put attention on different things. And it's really my only practice now almost is the breathing thing as I go through the day. And it really is pretty simple, I think. Once you get the feeling of that down, it's like I don't do a whole lot of other stuff. It's really funny because I studied that a long time, because we're working in the energetic field rather than just in another place. So like I said, there's other breathing mechanisms people would do. But what I wanted is something that's simple, that's easy, that you can start to do. And because I have to teach this when I go out, so almost every day I'm teaching this several times a day to people, that I have noticed a big change in me. So the benefit is huge. In the last 20 years, I haven't been sick very often. And I kind of go, I wonder if that's because I'm fully oxygenating my body now, and I have awareness of those things. And so I don't let the stress stay in my body very long, because stress is the big thing about causing physical ailment in us. That it really is the root cause of almost everything that we got going on health-wise, is it starts with stress. And if we can just do that without having to spend 5 hours meditating or, all that, because, I'm looking for the practical application too. It's like doing meditation is great, but for most people, they lose interest in it after a while. They quit doing the practice, and it's like, oh, this just becomes who you are. And you're noticing the stress as it comes up, and you're addressing it when it comes up. And then your body is back in homeostasis again. So
that's the key.
Yeah, it helps them too, because then they train to your breathing method too.
Is there any final message that you'd like to share with the listeners?
I want them to know that, and I'm sure most of them do already, that we can all do these things. I'm not any different. I didn't come here maybe a little more sensitive than some people, but it doesn't mean everybody can't do this. And everybody can't learn to do this if they want to put their intention on it. And it changes your life. And I'm not doing this because I need fame or glory. I'm doing this because I want to leave something behind that is helpful. And I want to take things and make them easier for people to understand. And just know I went through all the turmoil to go, oh, we could just do this. And then we could just do this. And, those things may propel you to go other places with them. But just know everybody can do this. That's, I think, my big message. Everybody can do this.
Well, I appreciate that. It's a good message. Thank you for being a part of this podcast. How can people find you?
Okay. Again, I have a website, Dr. DrSusanFay.com. And then I also have a Facebook group that is called Sacred Spaces /Sacred Wisdom. I do have a YouTube channel where you can listen to some different things that I've done. And that one is called Science and Spirit of Horses.
Well, I promise to make sure all of the links are in the show notes for both episodes. Susan, it's been wonderful to spend this time with you. It's been too long.
Absolutely. But we come together when it's something important.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. Yeah. And this podcast is my legacy, my gift to the world. And so now you're a part of that.
That is such an honor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julia.
That's our time for today. Thank you for your continued support of Evolving Humans. Your feedback matters. Please take a few moments to leave an honest review so we can be discovered by more people like you.